Skeptical New Testament scholars argue that the four Gospels in our New Testament are anonymous. There was no original Gospel according to Matthew, and the same thing goes for Mark, Luke, and John. Their titles were originally left blank, or at least so the theory goes. These four Gospels allegedly were distributed without titles for almost 100 years before scribes got the bright idea to assign them the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And of course, this happened well after the apostles were dead. These names got assigned to the four Gospels to give them a little bit more prestige. And you have skeptics like Bart Ehrman who go on to conclude that because these books were anonymous, they probably aren't based on eyewitness testimony. While many New Testament critics have latched on to the anonymous gospel theory, I believe that it suffers from some serious flaws. Let's take a look. First of all, there are no anonymous copies of the four Gospels. Zero, zilch, nada, none. Every single shred of manuscript evidence that we have attributes them to the traditional authors. While there is some variation in how they're titled, the familiar names are all there. Let's take a look at a few tables here. And we'll start with the Gospel according to Matthew. Now, you can see that the earliest manuscripts that we have all say either Gospel according to Matthew or according to Matthew. The same thing goes for Mark. Let's take a look at Luke. And here's the Gospel according to John. So as you can see, it's pretty consistent across the board with all the manuscripts that we have. There are no variations. Now, the other problem with the anonymous gospel theory is it really lacks plausibility. Consider this scenario. You have a book floating around the Roman Empire without a title for nearly a century, but somehow, at some time, it ends up being associated with the same author repeatedly. In fact, every single time. We have zero traces of disagreement. And this didn't just happen once, it happened 4 times throughout the vast Roman Empire. Somehow, by sheer luck, Christians living in Africa, Rome, Syria, and so forth attributed these Gospels to these same 4 guys, all without the help of email, text, social media, or Google. If the anonymous gospel theory were correct, we'd expect to see a lot more disagreement over who wrote what. But we have no contradictory titles. We don't have a gospel according to Mark that is attributed to somebody else like, say, the Apostle Peter or Andrew, Simon the Zealot, Bartholomew, or whoever. And if you think about it, Luke and Mark could have had more impressive names attributed to them. Scholars have unanimously rejected apocryphal gospels ascribed to Thomas, Peter, Judas, and Mary Magdalene. They all have some pretty attention-getting names, people who would have had first-hand access to Jesus, but Luke and Mark weren't first-hand witnesses to the resurrection, nor were they disciples of Jesus. So it's a bit odd attaching their names to 2 of the Gospels if they're not actually genuine. Also, think about the book of Hebrews for just a second. People throughout church history have debated who wrote it. Was it Paul? Was it Barnabas? Was it Timothy? We even have ancient manuscripts attributing Hebrews to all 3 of those different writers. To this day, we still have no idea who wrote Hebrews, but there is no debate in church history about who wrote the 4 Gospels. The anonymous gospel theory just doesn't add up. It fails to explain the utter lack of manuscript evidence, and it's implausible that the same 4 Gospels got the same attributions of authorship without a hint of disagreement. Mark and Luke aren't eyewitnesses to Jesus' life, so adding their name to those Gospels doesn't really do much in terms of their authority. Now, skeptics can snobbishly appeal to their scholarly bandwagon, but as it turns out, the anonymous gospel theory really does have some serious issues. I like what New Testament scholar Martin Hengel wrote. He writes in his book, The 4 Gospels and One Gospel of Jesus Christ, "Let those who deny the great age and therefore basic originality of the gospel superscriptions in order to preserve their good critical conscience give a better explanation of the completely unanimous and relatively early attestation of these titles, their origin and the names of the authors associated with them. Such an explanation has yet to be given and never will be." Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful. Please like and subscribe.